By the time I moved into that building, I had already gotten good at shrinking my life down to something quiet enough not to hurt me every morning. I was 42, divorced for a little over a year, living alone in a one-bedroom place that looked more like a temporary stop than a home. I kept it clean, kept it simple, kept my routine so steady I could get through whole weeks without feeling much of anything. Coffee in the same mug. Work on my laptop. Groceries on Thursday. Laundry on Sunday. No pictures on the walls. No guests. No reasons to explain myself to anybody. That was the point. The divorce had not been loud at the end. That was almost worse. No plates breaking, no screaming, no big final scene. Just two people who had spent years building a future and then one day stood in the middle of it like strangers looking at a bad investment. After that, I stopped trying to make my life mean more than the day in front of me. The family next door became familiar before they became important. I noticed the mother first because she always looked like she had just come from somewhere difficult, even when she was only checking the mail. Pretty in a tired way. Soft voice. Polite smile. She introduced herself as Nina the second week I was there when we both reached for the front door at the same time. She laughed, let me go first, then forgot her own grocery bag sitting on the lobby bench. I had to run it back up to her. See, she said when she opened the door. I'm already becoming one of those women. You're doing better than me, I told her. I forgot my keys in the freezer yesterday. She smiled like she needed the excuse to smile at all. The husband took longer. I saw him in pieces. Expensive coat. Fast steps in the hallway. Bluetooth in one ear. Phone pressed to his face even in the elevator. His name was Mark. The kind of man who nodded at people without really seeing them. Not rude exactly. Just efficient. Like everything in life had been sorted into priorities, and if you weren't urgent, you barely existed. Then there was the daughter. At first, she was just somebody passing through. I saw her once with a backpack, once carrying takeout, once sitting on the low wall outside the building with her knees up and headphones on. She was not a little girl. That was obvious. She had that age about her where childhood was already gone, but everything adult still looked too sharp at the edges. Maybe 21, 22. Serious face. Watchful eyes. The kind of person who looked like she heard more than she said. Her name was Leah. I found that out when her mother called after her in the hall one evening. Leah barely spoke to me in those first weeks. Just a nod, maybe a quick hello. But after a while, the small meetings started stacking up. In the lobby. At the corner coffee place. Once in the park across the street where I sometimes walked after work just to get out of the apartment before it started feeling like a storage unit with plumbing. One afternoon she saw the book in my hand and said, "You actually read that stuff, or do you just carry it around so people think you do?" It surprised a laugh out of me. "You always open with an accusation?" "Only when I'm trying to save time." That was the first real conversation. 10 minutes on a bench. Dry humor, no small talk, no fake brightness. She talked the way some people text when they're tired of pretending. Direct. A little sharp. Smarter than she wanted credit for. After that, she started stopping when she saw me instead of walking past. Sometimes she asked about work. Sometimes she asked why I lived alone. I should have kept my answers light, but I didn't. There was something about being questioned by somebody with no polite adult script to follow. She asked things straight. "Was the divorce your fault?" "Partly." "What does that mean?" "It means there's no version of it where I come out looking good." She looked at me for a second and said, "That's the most honest answer I've heard from an adult in months." That should have told me something right there. Little by little, I got the shape of the place next door without anyone ever sitting me down and explaining it. The mother moved through the apartment like somebody trying not to disturb a fragile peace. The father was home just enough to say he was involved. The daughter was there physically, but you could feel from the way she spoke that nobody was really reaching her. One evening at the coffee shop, she stirred a drink she hadn't touched and said, "Do you ever sit in a room with your family and feel like everybody already left?" I looked at her. Yeah. She gave a short nod like I had confirmed something for her. "It's weird," she said. "He pays for everything. My mother keeps saying that like it's the answer. The apartment, tuition, dinners, whatever. But he can sit right across from me and I swear it feels like he's answering emails in his head." I didn't say much after that. I just listened. That became the pattern. She talked. I listened. Then I talked more than I meant to, because it had been a long time since anyone seemed to care what was actually true. By the end of that first stretch, I had started noticing her knock in the hallway, her steps outside the door, the lift in my mood when I ran into her by chance. I told myself it was harmless. Just two lonely people talking because the walls were thin and life was smaller than either of us expected. But even then, before anything had a name, I could feel it forming. I'm glad you're here for this. Subscribe if you're still with me. After that, it stopped feeling like chance. Not all at once. It was still small on the surface. A few minutes in the lobby. Coffee when we happened to reach the place downstairs at the same time. Her knocking once on my door because her mother was asleep and she needed help getting a jar open, which was obviously not about the jar. The problem was that none of it looked unusual from the outside. That made it easy to keep going. Leah had a way of talking that pulled honesty out of me before I had time to dress it up. She would lean against the wall near the mailboxes, arms folded, and ask something blunt like, "When did you know your marriage was done?" No warm-up. No apology. And instead of giving the safe version, I would tell her the real one. "It was probably over long before I admitted it," I said once. She nodded slowly. That sounds familiar. Another time we were sitting across from each other in the coffee shop, and she asked, "Do people always become smaller when they give up, or do they just get quieter?" I looked at her for a second. "Who are we talking about?" She glanced toward the window. "Take your pick." That was the thing. She was young, but she was not confused about what was wrong in that apartment. She saw all of it. Her father's polished distance. Her mother's worn-out smile. The way dinner could happen every night without a single real word being said. She lived inside a home that still had all the furniture of a family and none of the life. And I knew too well what it meant to sit in silence with people you were supposed to be close to. So I listened. That became our private habit. Not planned. Not named. Just there. If I got back from work around 6, there was a decent chance I would run into her somewhere between the elevator and my front door. If I took a walk after dinner, sometimes she was already outside, sitting on the low wall with a paper cup in her hand, like she had only come down for air. I started noticing what days she looked brittle, what kind of mood meant she wanted jokes, what kind meant she wanted the truth. And I started waiting for it. That was when I first got uneasy with myself. Not because of anything dramatic. Because of simple things. I would hear movement in the hall and look up. I would catch myself wondering if she was home. I would be in the middle of my own evening and realize part of me was listening for a knock that had no reason to matter as much as it did. One night she came by while I was taking trash out. She was standing at her own door with her arms folded tight, staring at the floor. "You okay?" I asked. She gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "He forgot." "Your father?" She nodded. "What did he forget?" She looked up at me then, eyes bright in a way I did not like. "He told me 3 times he'd make it tonight. It was this little thing at school. Nothing special. I only reminded him for 2 weeks." I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there. She kept going. The stupid part is I still dressed up for it. I still checked my phone. I still kept looking at the door like an idiot. You're not an idiot. No, she said. Feels pretty close. I should have ended it there. Told her to go inside. Told her to talk to her mother. Told myself whatever this was had reached its limit. Instead I said, come walk with me. We went around the block twice. She talked almost the whole time. Not loudly. Not like she wanted pity. More like something had finally cracked and the words were tired of staying in her. She told me her father could remember flight times, board meetings, client birthdays, but not the things that made her feel like she existed. She told me her mother had gotten so used to being let down that now she defended him automatically, like resignation was her full-time job. She told me sometimes she thought the worst part was not being mistreated, but being slowly taught to expect less and call it normal. That line stayed with me. When we came back, the hallway light outside our doors was the only thing on. She stood there with her hands in her coat pockets, looking wrung out but calmer. I hate that you get it, she said. Why? Because when you get it, I can't pretend I'm exaggerating. Then she gave me this tired half-smile and went inside. After that, the distance between us changed even when neither of us mentioned it. She started asking me things nobody in that building should have been asking me. Did I ever think about calling my ex? Did I miss the person or just the structure? Was I happier alone or just less disappointed? And because she was giving me the truth, I kept giving it back. That was the mistake. Not one big decision. A series of small permissions. A week later I saw Nina in the elevator. She looked drained, more than usual, and smelled faintly like some powdery sleep medicine. She smiled at me and said, Leah likes talking to you. There was nothing suspicious in the way she said it. That almost made it worse. She's smart, I told her. She is, Nina said, then looked at the elevator doors. She just doesn't really have anyone she trusts right now. I said nothing after that. I could feel the weight of it landing anyway. By then, next door had started to feel like a stage set for a family instead of one. Mark was around less. Nina floated through the halls like somebody heavily padded against daily disappointment. And Leah, for reasons I should have questioned harder, kept coming to me with the parts of herself nobody else was taking care of. I told myself I was helping because nothing had crossed any line. But the room between what is happening and what is coming can get very small very fast. And one night, when I heard someone knock after 10 and opened the door to find Leah standing there with tears on her face and her voice barely holding together, I understood exactly how dangerous that had become. She was trying not to fall apart when I opened the door, and somehow that made it worse. Her face was blotchy, eyes wet, hair pulled back badly like she had done it with shaking hands. She was wearing a sweatshirt over whatever she had thrown on to leave the apartment next door, and for a second she looked younger than she ever had with me. Not like a child. Just like somebody too worn down to hold herself together anymore. I'm sorry, she said. I know it's late. What happened? She let out one breath that almost broke in the middle. Can I come in? That should have been the moment I stopped it before it even had the chance to become dangerous. I should have stayed in the doorway. I should have told her no in the gentlest way I could. Told her we could talk tomorrow, told her to wake her mother, told her anything that would have kept a locked room from forming around what had already gone too far. Instead I stepped back. She came in and stood near the kitchen counter without taking off her coat. I asked if she wanted water. She nodded. Her hands were trembling when I gave her the glass. For a minute she couldn't speak properly. I didn't push. I just waited, and finally she said, he did it again. Her father. This time it had been dinner. Some dinner that mattered because he had promised, because her mother had made it matter, because Leah had let herself believe one normal evening might happen if she wanted it badly enough. He had called late, said something work-related, said they should go ahead without him, said he'd make it up to them. Leah told it flat at first, then angrier, then not flat at all. My mother just sat there saying it was fine, she said. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like disappointment is part of the place setting now. I leaned against the counter and listened. She even defended him, Leah said. Do you know how sick that makes me? Watching her help him fail us better. She put the glass down too hard. Water sloshed onto the counter. I said something, she went on. Actually, I said a lot. And my mother told me I was being unfair, and then when he finally called back, he was annoyed. Annoyed. Like my timing was the problem. Her voice cracked on that last part. She pressed her lips together and looked away. I just couldn't stay in there. The apartment felt smaller with every word. Not physically. Morally. Like all the space I thought I had around my life was closing in. I told myself I was still just listening. Still just letting her calm down. Still just being the person who had been there before. But I knew, standing 3 steps from her in my own kitchen at night with the building quiet around us, that this was not harmless anymore. Not because of anything she had done. Because of what the two of us had already built without admitting it. She wiped under her eyes, angry at herself for crying. I hate that I came here, she said. You don't have to hate it. Yes, I do. She looked at me then, directly. Because I knew where I was coming. That landed between us and stayed there. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I knew what she meant, and worse, some part of me had known it before she said it. She took a step closer, not dramatic, not reckless, just enough to make the air change. You remember things, she said quietly. You listen. You look at me when I'm talking like what I'm saying matters. My throat felt tight. Leah. No, just let me say it. I should have cut her off right there. Instead I stood there and let her keep going because I was lonely enough to want the words even knowing they were wrong. You're the only person who's been real with me in that building, she said. The only one who doesn't talk to me like I'm in the way or too much or temporary. She was crying again now, but she wasn't hiding from it. I come here because when I'm with you, I don't feel invisible. Ever felt invisible like that? Tell me about it in the comments. That was the worst part. Not that she was reaching for something reckless. That what she said hit something in me that had been empty for a long time. I knew exactly what it felt like to disappear inside your own life. To become background in rooms where you once thought you belonged. To want one person, just one, to say, I see you. You are here. You matter. And for one ugly, human moment, I wanted to let that be enough reason. She moved closer again and put her hand on my arm. Not by accident. There are moments when a whole future can pivot on whether you stay still or step back. This was one of them. I knew it while it was happening. I knew it and still did not move fast enough. I put my hand over hers. That is the part one still hate. Because for 1 second I did not stop it. For 1 second I let loneliness make its case. Hers. Mine. The whole terrible argument of it. Nobody sees us. Nobody is coming. We are both already broken in ways nobody else cares about. Just take the comfort. Then something in me came back hard. I stepped away from her so quickly she looked stunned. No, I said. She stared at me. I forced myself to keep going before weakness dressed itself back up as kindness. This cannot happen. Her face changed all at once. Hurt first. Then confusion. Then humiliation, because now she could see that I had understood. Leah, listen to me. No. She backed up, shaking her head. Don't. You need to go home. That sounded colder than I meant it to, but maybe cold was the only thing that could hold the line now. She looked at me like I had slapped her.